The villagers always warned their children never to follow a whisper, especially in the woods where the moonlight dies before it reaches the ground. But one child did. One child heard the voice that wasn't human, felt the shadow that wasn't wind, and walked into trees behind the one creature every legend feared to name. Dracula didn't drag this child. He didn't hunt them. He didn't even hide. He called, softly, almost gently, and the child followed him willingly. Hours later, the child returned, but nothing about them was the same. Their eyes seemed older. Their voice trembled with secrets. And they never spoke of what happened among the roots and fog, under the ancient branches where even the wolves refused to howl. Why did Dracula let the child live? What did he show them in the dark? And what did the child bring back that wasn't theirs before? This is the story the village tried to bury, because the truth was far more terrifying than the legend. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and turn on notifications so you never miss our dark, suspenseful, and emotional stories from the world of Dracula. The night it happened, the woods were quieter than usual. Quiet in the wrong way. Not peaceful. Not gentle. Silent, like something was listening. Silent, like something was waiting. The village of Hallowbrook sat pressed against the forest's edge, terrified of anything that lived beyond the first row of trees. The elders claimed the woods were ancient, older than the church bell, older than the grave behind it, older than the village itself. They whispered that the forest remembered every scream it ever swallowed. But that night, it wasn't the forest that frightened them. It was who moved inside it. A figure, tall, thin, cloaked in darkness, walked between the trees as if guiding the wind itself. Some said his footsteps made no sound. Others claimed he didn't walk at all but floated, gliding like a shadow searching for something lost. No torchlight touched him. No animal dared breathe in his direction. Dracula had returned to Hallowbrook, but the villagers did not know that yet. They only sensed it. A superstition, a chill, a wrongness in the air. Dogs whimpered. Horses refused water. Babies woke screaming, as if dreaming of something pulling their tiny ankles. Mothers closed shutters. Fathers locked doors. Elders prayed, because every villager, whether they admitted it or not, remembered the old rule. If Dracula walks the woods, he is not hunting. He is choosing. And someone would be chosen. Miles away from the fear tightening the village like a fist, a young boy named Elias sat on the back steps of his home, staring into the same woods everyone else avoided. Elias was quiet, thoughtful, different in ways that made adults tilt their heads and children whisper. He was gentle, but strange. Never afraid of storms, shadows, or stories that sent others hiding under blankets. His mother often said he had an old soul, though she never explained what that meant. Tonight, that old soul felt restless. He swore he heard something in the trees. Not a sound, no crack of a branch, no rustling of leaves. Something softer, something that curled like smoke around his thoughts. A whisper, a voice that wasn't a voice. Elias stood slowly, his eyes narrowing as he stepped off the wooden stairs and onto the cool dirt path. The wind brushed his face, carrying the smell of pine, wet earth, and something else, something metallic, ancient, cold. It called again. He took another step. Behind him, through the open window, his parents argued softly about bills, harvest shortages, the usual struggles of small village life. No one noticed the boy walking farther from the house, his small hand brushing the fence as if it comforted him. No one noticed his breathing slow, his pupils widen, his feet moving in a rhythm not entirely his own. By the time his mother called his name, Elias was already too far to hear it. Deeper into the forest, Dracula moved without urgency. His eyes, bright, sharp, almost glowing, studied the darkness as if reading lines in a book only he could see. The trees bowed subtly as he passed, their branches bending with ancient recognition. He stopped when the whispering wind shifted. A smile, not friendly, not cruel, simply knowing, touched his lips. The child hears me. His voice, smooth as velvet and cold as winter stone, faded into the night. He lifted his hand slightly, palm open, silently inviting the forest to carry the message. And it did. Elias emerged from the brush minutes later, small, barefoot, eyes wide but not afraid. He didn't scream. He didn't run. He didn't question why a strange figure stood beneath the twisted oak. He simply whispered, "I heard you." Dracula studied him. Not like a predator studies prey, but like a scholar observing a rare and delicate artifact. "Most children fear the dark woods," Dracula said softly, "but you walked toward them." Elias lifted his chin. "I wasn't afraid." "No," Dracula replied, stepping closer. "You weren't." The boy's heartbeat fluttered, not in fear but in recognition, as if some part of him had always known this moment would come. Dracula circled him once, slow and deliberate, assessing, analyzing, choosing. Not hunting, choosing. "You followed my voice," Dracula said. "I didn't mean to," Elias whispered. "You did." Dracula's eyes glowed brighter. "And that is why you are the one." The woods exhaled. The trees leaned in. Something ancient shifted in the soil. Elias swallowed. "The one for what?" Dracula placed a cold hand on the boy's shoulder. "For what the night has waited centuries to reveal." And as the moon slipped behind a cloud, the forest swallowed them both. The boy's footprints faded behind him, erased by a wind that didn't belong to the living. Elias would return, but not as the child he was, and never the same again. The deeper Elias walked beside Dracula, the less the forest resembled anything familiar. The trees grew taller, bending inward like colossal ribs, forming a cage around them. Their branches tangled into shapes that looked almost skeletal, and the moonlight narrowed into thin, trembling beams, more like the dying glow of candles than true light. Yet Elias felt no fear, only a strange pull in his chest, like something hidden inside him had waited for this very path, this exact night. "What is this place?" he asked softly. Dracula didn't turn. His voice drifted like frost-laced wind. "A part of the forest no map remembers, and no villager survives long enough to describe." Most children would have run at those words, but Elias only pressed forward. "Why did you want me to come?" Dracula glanced back, an expression Elias couldn't read. Not hunger, not malice. Something sharper, something searching. "You came because you listened," he said. "That alone makes you different." The boy frowned. "No, not different. Just curious." "Curiosity," Dracula murmured, "is a dangerous purity. The world crushes it out of most children before they grow tall enough to understand why." They continued walking. The forest floor changed beneath Elias's feet. Dirt gave way to a soft, cold ground that pulsed faintly, like breathing earth. Small, glowing moths drifted out of hollow tree trunks, circling Elias like tiny pale lanterns. The boy lifted one hand, letting a moth land on his finger. Its wings flickered with a color he had no name for. "They like you," Dracula said. Elias blinked. "Why?" Dracula paused. "Because the forest recognizes its own." The boy tilted his head. "What does that mean?" But Dracula didn't answer. Far behind them, the village boiled in panic. Elias's mother searched every path, her voice cracking as she yelled his name. His father lit lanterns, running door to door, begging for help. Elders cursed the old stories they once sneered at. Dogs barked and pulled at their chains, sensing something ancient awakening in the distance. Father Rennick, the village priest, clutched his rusted silver cross and whispered the words he hoped were untrue. He followed the whisper. "God help us." He followed the whisper, because every villager knew what that meant. The whisper didn't call just anyone. It called the ones who could hear what others couldn't, the ones who belonged to the dark in ways no one understood. And if a child heard it, they never returned the same. Back in the forest, Dracula stopped before a massive fallen tree, its roots clawing into the air like skeletal hands. The trunk was split open, forming a passage that pulsed with faint bluish light from inside. Elias's breath hitched. "Is that a doorway?" "A threshold," Dracula whispered. "And every threshold demands a choice." He stepped aside, gesturing toward the hollow. "You may turn back now and return to the life you knew, or you may step inside and see why it chose you." Elias hesitated for the first time. The air near the fallen tree felt heavy, pressing against his skin, stirring something in his bones. He took one step back. "Why me?" he asked. Dracula's gaze locked on his. Because you're not afraid of questions whose answers terrify others. The boy swallowed. My parents, they'll worry. If you go back now, Dracula said gently, you will forget this night. Forget you heard me. Forget everything the forest tried to show you. You will grow older. You will live. You will be ordinary. Elias's chest tightened at that last word. Ordinary. He didn't know why, but it felt like a loss. And if I go forward? He asked. Dracula stepped closer, his presence powerful but strangely comforting. Then you will understand what has been waking inside you since the day you were born. The boy's heartbeat quickened. He didn't know what Dracula meant. Not fully. But the forest had been calling him long before tonight. He felt it now with absolute clarity. Something in him had waited for this. Elias touched the glowing bark. It was warm rather than cold. Alive. What's inside? He whispered. Dracula leaned in. Truth. Elias hesitated one more moment, then stepped inside. The air changed instantly. Denser, colder, filled with whispers that curled around his ears like soft chanting. The passage glowed brighter the deeper he walked. Symbols carved into it pulsed in rhythmic patterns, like veins illuminated from within. Dracula entered behind him, but the tunnel didn't echo their footsteps. Sound didn't behave normally here. Are we underground? Elias asked. No, Dracula said. We are between. Between what? Worlds. The tunnel narrowed, then opened into a vast clearing lit by a ghostly blue sky that didn't belong to night or day. Strange trees with silver leaves surrounded a circular stone altar at the center. Elias's breath caught. He felt drawn to the altar, pulled by an invisible thread. Dracula watched him carefully. This is why I brought you, he said. This place answers only to those it recognizes. The boy stepped forward. The altar began to glow beneath his feet. The forest itself seemed to inhale. Dracula lowered his voice. And now, Elias, it's time to learn what made you hear my call. The glowing stone beneath Elias's feet pulsed like a heartbeat, slow, ancient and powerful. The blue light spread outward in spirals, illuminating carvings he hadn't noticed before. Symbols, runes, shapes that felt both familiar and impossibly old. Elias couldn't read them with his eyes, but somehow, deep inside, he understood them. He shivered. Dracula watched him closely, his expression unreadable, not predatory, not triumphant, almost reverent. The forest recognizes you, Dracula murmured, stepping closer. It has been waiting. Elias touched one of the glowing symbols. The stone was warm, humming softly, as though greeting him. The moment his finger brushed the carving, the entire altar came alive, light shooting upward in pillars that twisted into a dome above them. Elias gasped, What is this? What's happening? Dracula's voice lowered into something solemn. This is the vein of memories, the heart of the ancient woods. It remembers every child who ever wandered too far, and every child who was taken. Elias's breath hitched. Taken by who? By me? Dracula didn't look away. By the darkness. By the forest itself. The boy stepped back. His chest tightened. Why did you take them? Dracula stared into the swirling lights overhead, shadows carving deeper lines into his face. Because their souls called out in fear. Fear feeds the dark. Fear shapes it. But you, he turned his gaze back to Elias. You came without fear. The boy swallowed. So that's why you chose me? Because I wasn't scared. No, Dracula said gently. I chose you because the darkness did not try to claim you. Elias blinked. It didn't. Dracula slowly extended his hand toward the altar. The swirling lights reacted instantly, recoiling from him, bending away as though they feared his touch. Elias's eyes widened. It's afraid of you. It should be. Dracula's voice was quiet but heavy. I was shaped by these woods long ago, born of their hunger. But you, he gestured to the altar, you awaken something different, something they obey. Elias stared at his small hands. I don't understand. You will, Dracula said, but you must see what the woods remembers. Before Elias could respond, the ground beneath them shifted. The altar's light dimmed, then brightened again, projecting images into the air like shattered glass reassembling into memories. Elias saw children, dozens of them, run between the trees, playing, laughing, until the forest began to swallow the sound. Shadows crept in. The light vanished. One by one, the children disappeared, their laughter dissolving into silence. Elias trembled. This happened? Yes, Dracula said. Long before your village existed. The vision changed. The forest was darker now. The trees twisted into monstrous shapes. A figure appeared. Tall, pale, cloaked. Elias gasped. It was Dracula, but younger, with eyes that burned like fire. Elias watched him hunt. Not cruelly, not joyfully, but instinctively, like a creature bound to hunger he couldn't control. Why are you showing me this? Elias whispered. Dracula stepped beside him. Because you must understand the curse I carry. The vision shifted again. This time, Elias saw a small child, a girl, standing at the edge of the woods, whispering into the darkness. Dracula approached her slowly, almost lovingly, but the girl didn't run. She stepped toward him willingly, just like Elias had. Then Elias saw Dracula's eyes soften, filled with something the boy didn't expect. Regret, pain. The child touched Dracula's hand, and the memory shattered. The light exploded upward, then faded, leaving Elias shaking. Who was she? He whispered. A child who heard the whisper like you, Dracula said quietly. A child I failed to protect. Elias felt something ache inside his chest. What happened to her? She became part of the forest, Dracula said, lost between worlds. Why? Elias asked, voice cracking. Dracula turned his eyes toward him, glowing, sorrowful, ancient, because she was chosen for the wrong reason. Elias swallowed. What reason? Hunger. The word fell like a stone. Dracula knelt, reaching for Elias's hands, not to restrain, but to steady. You were not chosen for hunger, he whispered. You were chosen for truth. The altar flared again, this time brighter, responding directly to Elias. The boy's vision blurred as another memory forced its way into his mind. But this memory wasn't from the forest. It was from him. A small boy, him, standing in a crib, staring at a shadow outside his window. A whisper, a soft humming, a presence watching over him, not threatening, but waiting. Elias staggered. I've heard you before. Yes, Dracula said. Since you were an infant, you were always meant to hear the woods. Elias clutched his head. Why? What am I? Dracula's voice softened to something almost human. You're the first child the darkness has ever called without one to consume. The forest rumbled as if agreeing. Elias stared at the glowing altar beneath him, his heart pounding, shadows and light swirling at his feet. Dracula stepped closer. And now, Elias, the woods are waiting for you to choose them back. The forest had gone silent in a way that felt unnatural, as if every living creature had agreed to hold its breath. Rowan's flashlight cut through the trees in sharp, trembling lines. Behind him, Mrs. Hartley clutched Liam's jacket, refusing to let the boy out of her reach again. The child hadn't spoken since whispering. He's still watching. They walked deeper into the woods until the investigator suddenly froze. Here, the ground before them was disturbed. Leaves pushed aside, dirt scraped violently, roots torn open like something had been dragged to the earth with immense force. Rowan knelt, brushing a hand through the torn earth. This is where you found him, right? He asked. Mrs. Hartley nodded. He was standing here, just standing, looking at nothing. But Rowan saw something, a shape, a pattern. The soil wasn't just disturbed. It was carved, a sigil, large, circular, almost perfect. And at the center of that uncanny symbol, a small imprint, like the mark of a child's bare foot. Rowan swallowed hard. This wasn't here before the boy disappeared. Mrs. Hartley stared. What does it mean? The investigator stood, scanning the tree lean. It means he didn't wander off. He was taken. Liam finally looked up. He showed me the way. He said I was the only one who could follow. Mrs. Hartley knelt in front of her son, voice cracking. Liam, Who said that? Who are you talking about? The boy blinked slowly, as if choosing the right answer. The man with the red eyes. A shiver moved through both adults. Rowan crouched, lowering his voice. What did he want with you? Liam looked past him into the forest, eyes empty, to see if I was ready. Something moved behind the trees. A faint shift, a whisper of air, the suggestion of a figure standing just beyond the flashlight's reach. Rowan spun, aiming the beam directly at the movement. Nothing, but the forest had changed. The silence had thickened, and Liam's breathing grew uneven. He's close, the boy whispered. Rowan grabbed Mrs. Hartley's arm. We're leaving. Now. On the walk back, every sound felt too deliberate. A branch snapping under a weight too heavy, leaves rustling without wind, the distant echo of something that resembled a low, rumbling exhale. When they reached the cabin, it was already dark. Rowan locked the doors, sliding every latch he could find. Mrs. Hartley held Liam tightly, rocking him, whispering prayers she hadn't said in years. He marked this place, Rowan muttered, pacing. And he marked the boy. The sigil isn't just a symbol, it's an invitation. Invitation for what? She demanded. Before Rowan could answer, Liam lifted his head, for him to come inside. The lights flickered. Once, twice, then they went out, and in the darkness, from just outside the cabin walls, came the unmistakable sound of footsteps, measured, slow, as if someone or something was circling the house with confidence. Mrs. Hartley clamped a hand over her mouth. Rowan drew his weapon, though he knew it would be useless. Something brushed the wall outside, a scrape, slow and deliberate, like fingers trailing across wood. He's here, Liam murmured. The window rattled. Then, behind them, a whisper. Not Liam's, not Rowan's, not human. A whisper that curled through the dark, dripping with hunger and promise. He followed me. Now you will follow him. Rowan grabbed the boy, pulling him back as Mrs. Hartley screamed. And outside, the footsteps stopped, because whatever stood in the darkness was now right at the door. The cabin door trembled under a slow, deliberate pressure. Rowan raised his gun, though every instinct screamed that it would accomplish nothing. Mrs. Hartley pulled Liam behind her, but the boy wasn't afraid. He stared at the door with unsettling calm. A shadow passed across the window, tall, thin, impossibly elongated. Mrs. Hartley stifled a sob. Rowan, what does he want? The investigator never took his eyes off the door. Something old, something he thinks belongs to him. The wood groaned as if gripped by unseen hands. Then silence. Rowan whispered, Don't move. The silence stretched. Too still, too perfect. Then, thud. The entire door buckled inward, as if struck by a massive force. A picture frame fell from the wall. The wind outside began to howl, though the air was dead still. Rowan pressed a finger to his lips. Back, slowly. He moved toward the door. Every step felt like stepping deeper into a trap he had no escape from. Liam tilted his head. He's not trying to break in. Rowan froze. Then what is he doing? The boy's voice softened. Waiting. Mrs. Hartley began to shake. Waiting for what? Liam looked at his mother with eyes too calm for a child in such terror. For me. Rowan knelt in front of him. Liam, listen to me. You don't have to go anywhere. He can't take you if you don't. You don't understand, Liam interrupted. He already did. A chill swept through the room. Rowan suddenly noticed something he hadn't before. The boy's skin was colder than the air. Too cold. The cabin lights flickered back on, and on the wall opposite the door, a symbol had been burned into the wood. The same sigil from the forest. Fresh. Smoking. With a single sentence carved beneath it. The child has been chosen. Mrs. Hartley screamed. Rowan pulled her back, but she rushed to Liam, holding his shoulders. Chosen for what? Liam, what is happening to you? Liam blinked slowly, as if he had trouble remembering the answer. He said I would understand when he comes inside. The lights flickered. Once. Twice. This time, when they went out, they didn't come back. Then, the door latch clicked. But no one had touched it. Rowan raised his weapon, backing up. "Stay behind me." The door began to open, quietly, calmly, as if the thing outside didn't need to force its way in. A cold wind swept through the opening, carrying the scent of old earth and something metallic. Then the figure appeared. A silhouette of impossible height, shoulders sharp like blades, eyes red as dying embers. Dracula stepped inside with the quiet grace of a creature that had killed for centuries without effort. Mrs. Hartley collapsed to her knees. Rowan fired. The bullet passed straight through the vampire and embedded into the far wall. Dracula smiled. He looked at Liam. Liam stepped forward. Rowan grabbed the boy's arm. "No, you're not taking him." Dracula tilted his head, amused, and spoke his first words, a voice smooth as silk and twice as deadly. "He belongs to me more than he ever belonged to you." Mrs. Hartley sobbed. Rowan shook, still gripping the boy. Dracula extended a hand, elegant, ancient, inevitable. Liam whispered, "It's time." And Rowan realized, with a horror that hollowed him out, the hunt hadn't begun outside. It had begun the moment Liam followed Dracula into the woods. And now, Dracula had come to collect what was promised. The moment Dracula stepped fully into the cabin, the air thickened, like every oxygen molecule bowed to his presence. Rowan's grip tightened around Liam's wrist, but the boy did not resist. He simply watched the vampire as if witnessing something inevitable, like a tide rolling in, unstoppable, ancient, following a pattern older than mankind. Dracula took another step. Silence swallowed the room. Mrs. Hartley crawled forward on trembling hands, desperation breaking her voice. "Please, he's just a child. Take me instead, please." The vampire paused. His red eyes drifted to her, studying her with the indifference of a predator examining a creature too small to matter. Then he smiled, a smile so gentle it was horrifying. "If I wanted your life, woman, I would have taken it in the woods." Mrs. Hartley choked on a sob. Rowan aimed again, knowing it was useless but needing to try. "Let him go. He doesn't belong to you." Dracula's gaze moved to Rowan, and for the first time, something like amusement touched his face. Human instincts are admirable. Futile, but admirable. He raised one elegant hand, and Rowan felt his arm go numb. The gun dropped from his fingers and clattered onto the floor. The investigator's knees buckled, and he hit the ground with a choked breath. Dracula never touched him. Liam stepped forward another inch. Mrs. Hartley's voice broke into a desperate whisper. "Liam, sweetheart, please don't go." The boy finally turned toward her. For a brief moment, his eyes softened, truly softened, like the real Liam flickered through. "Mom, I don't want to go." Hope exploded in her chest. "Then stay with me." Liam blinked. Tears filled his eyes. But he didn't choose only me. Rowan froze. Mrs. Hartley went still. Even the vampire stilled, as though the boy's words were more prophetic than they realized. Dracula tilted his head slightly. "You seem more than I expected, child." Liam swallowed. "I hear you. In the woods. In the dark. Even when you're not there." The vampire's smile widened. "Then you understand why you must come." The boy shook his head. "No, I understand why I can't." A pulse of cold wind rushed through the cabin, extinguishing even the weak glow of the dying fire. Dracula took a slow step closer. "Child, you think you can refuse me?" Liam wiped his eyes, voice steadying. "You didn't come because I was ready. You came because you're weaker." Rowan felt his heart stop. Mrs. Hartley covered her mouth. Dracula's expression froze, like stone cracking. "Weaker?" the vampire repeated softly. Liam nodded. "You fed on someone else. Someone stronger than you expected. And now you need me to finish what you started." Dracula lowered his head slightly, nostrils flaring. Rage flickered through his eyes, but not the kind that lashes out impulsively, the kind that savors destruction. "You are clever, dangerous. That is why I chose you." The boy stepped back. "No, you chose me because you can't get back into the forest. Something there hurt you." Rowan gasped. Mrs. Hartley stared in disbelief. Dracula did not deny it. Instead, he spoke quietly, too quietly, Come with me now, Liam, and your mother lives. Mrs. Hartley sobbed, shaking her head violently. No, don't listen to him. Please, please. Rowan forced himself to stand, barely managing a step. Liam, you don't owe him anything. Don't go. The boy trembled. He was terrified. He was breaking. But then he looked at his mother, and something in him shifted. Resolve. Courage. A spark that did not belong to Dracula. If you want me, Liam whispered, you'll have to come through all of us. Dracula's expression fell into something cold, eternal, deadly. So be it. He lunged. Rowan moved first, throwing himself between the vampire and the boy. Dracula struck him across the chest, sending him crashing into a wooden beam so hard the entire cabin shook. Mrs. Hartley screamed. The vampire grabbed Liam's arm, but the boy didn't move. He looked Dracula directly in the eyes and whispered, "You're not allowed inside unless we invite you." Dracula froze. His fingers loosened. His expression twisted. Pure, ancient fury. Because Liam was right. He hadn't been invited. The door had opened because Liam had willed it open. And with that realization, Liam yanked his arm free. Mrs. Hartley grabbed her son and pulled him behind her. Rowan dragged himself upright. Dracula stepped forward, but stopped at the threshold of the living room. His body shuddered, as if something invisible held him back. Liam shouted, "You're not invited." The cabin shook. The lights burst back on. A violent wind surged through the doorway, and Dracula was hurled backward into night, dissolving into a vortex of ash and shadow. He screamed, not in pain, but in promise. "This is not over, child." The wind died. The door slammed shut. Silence returned. Liam collapsed into his mother's arms. Rowan leaned against the wall, shaking. Outside, the forest breathed again. But Liam whispered, voice trembling with dread and certainty, "He'll come back." Mrs. Hartley held him tighter. Rowan swallowed, staring at the door. Then when he does, we'll be waiting. Because Dracula had chosen a child, but the child had chosen to fight. And that changed everything.